how can you deal with those challenges? For example, before you were saying, okay, before we go there, we have to identify a few questions, a few things. For example, can I live with this difference? But imagine that I say, yes, but I don't know how. So how can you deal with those challenges, with those things?
Well, one of it is already what is your repertoire that you come from, right? Mm-hmm. So if you are open to influence, mm-hmm. if you are fine with letting your partner maybe say, this is some of the things that we'll take into our house, this is some of the things that this is the way we will deal with our kids, mm-hmm. and you're like, you know what, it's different to me, but I'm actually okay with it. And it's sort of like this thing of like, it does not necessarily need to be that my culture dictates what happens. Also, a curiosity, right? Mm-hmm. In the sense is like, okay, I do not think that I have my partner pinned down. Not working with stereotypes, mm-hmm. right? Stereotypes can be fun. Humor would be a great strategy, you know? Yeah. Just making fun. You can use stereotypes in a fun way, you know, which maybe reduces a little bit of the tension. Mm-hmm. But those are particular skills mm-hmm. that need to be taken into account. But if you talk about how can I deal with this, first of all, it's also becoming aware of what process you need to go through. So you need to be aware that you possibly need to acculturate to the culture of your spouse or your partner. And that this takes time, that you will find things very interesting, but other things are going to be very difficult to swallow, or you might even find annoying. Even some things that you initially liked are the differences that you later dislike. And it's sort of like looking at, hey, I like this at some point, so maybe I can still cherish what this is. And also becoming very mindful that sometimes a cultural difference does not mean that your partner is getting at you. It's just a different way of doing it. It's nothing personal, right? But it can become personal when you really start picking and pointing it out continually, because then you may be dealing with something that has an emotional value for your partner, making your partner actually turn defensive on you because, you know, there is not a welcoming to the difference. So it is celebrating the difference in some way, but also knowing maybe there are things that I need to give up. Maybe there are things that I would do differently, and that if I have chosen for this, then
I have to face it.
I have to face it. And that can be difficult. And I mean, if you get used to a different culture, that takes time, just as it does in the couple. So
it's a process, and you have to have that in mind, I guess.
Exactly. And we're not talking here about how you communicate or conflict management. That would be a challenge that non-mixed couples also have to face. There is this term called transnationalization, and this basically refers to how can I ground my identity, form significant relationships, and how can I live with the differences of two or more cultures. So can I make my home elsewhere? That will be one. That can be difficult, and maybe for one partner that is easier than it is for the other. Also, if you go to a different country, if it is a new country for both of you, this means that there's going to be more pressure on the couple. So you're going to have that role that maybe friendships and family, extended family has, but you don't. And specifically in the beginning, that puts more stress on the couple. And if you talk about, dynamics of, hey, how do we go about spending time together, time alone, shared versus individual, that is a particular challenge too. Again, just as you get used to the culture of your spouse, how do you get used to other cultures? What's your response to that? How open are you? So these are things that I think are particular challenges. It can also be how far you are away from your family, right? Who are we going to visit? When?
How many times?
Exactly. Frequency, because all these things have to do also with your possibilities, finances, and finances are another great thing to take into consideration, another hotspot for couples. And when it comes to mixed, well, it's requires more financially, unfortunately.